Hey guys, welcome back to coloring. So, yes, I know this is probably the sixth or seventh set of markers I'm testing, and you're probably thinking I've turned into a full-time marker collector, but when Arrtx offers you to try something new, and lately markers have been making my life so much easier, there's no way I can say no. I get too excited when a package arrives. Now, before we dive in, just a quick reminder. This is a tutorial, so you can use whatever you already have. I'm just using these markers today so you can see how they work, and then later I'll share my feedback. This time I'm trying out the Simptap markers. They come in a lovely pink box, very typical Arrtx style. The box is nice and compact, which I love because my desk usually looks like a mini art hurricane hit it, but here's the catch. There's no tray inside, so the moment you pull one marker out, the others start falling in the box. And if you're a neat freak like me, this can be slightly stressful. I always keep markers in their original boxes because I like to instantly see which color I'm picking without messing up the order. I try to organize them at the start, but during coloring, it just didn't make sense. They simply don't stay in line. Maybe I'm spoiled by the other Arrtx sets where they stand so neatly. However, once I swatched the colors, I thought, okay, this set might actually be a lot of fun. This is a set of 48 markers, but they work a little differently. You have to follow the instructions here. I learned that the hard way with the white marker, so let's just say don't be like me. First, you need to shake them really well. It says 20 times to get the color flowing. Then remove the plugs on both sides. This is only for the first time though. And here comes the most important part. Hold the marker tip down and very gently press the button at the top about 3 or 4 times. You'll see the color slowly filling the tip. The first time I got a little too enthusiastic with the button, and let's just say the white marker wasn't too happy about it, and that's lesson learned. The cool part is that with this button, you can actually control how much color comes out. You don't need to do it all the time, but if the ink stops flowing or you want a thicker layer, you just press it once or twice. Super simple once you get the hang of it. The markers are numbered, which is super handy, and the colors are surprisingly nice. I even desaturated my swatches to check the values, and there's a good balance of light and dark tones, which is really important in coloring, so I'm really happy with how it looks so far. Let's jump into coloring. I chose Johanna's small Victories coloring book, which has these cute little illustrations. I'll try to connect them in some way, but it's not that easy when the pictures are all separate like this. I'm not going to stress about making everything match perfectly. My main goal is just to show you lots of the colors these markers can offer and maybe give you a few ideas on how to approach small illustrations like this. I also didn't want to dive into a bigger project again right now because this page is a nice way to test acrylic markers on backgrounds too. When something feels a bit overwhelming, I think it's best to take it step by step, and since we don't really have much background space here, it makes coloring a little easier. I already know I won't be able to stick to just a few colors. I want to use a bunch of them, but you can see right away that these markers are super vibrant and have such a nice range of colors. I'll need to think a bit about how to connect them, keeping the other illustrations on the page in mind. For example, I want to do some night scenes, but I don't want it to be just night and stars, since the page has 4 rows. I'm starting with the purple mushroom at night, and I'm thinking of mixing in some more natural tones like beige and yellowish shades. I can already tell this page is going to push me out of my comfort zone a bit, but that's part of the fun. As you can see, the markers cover the background really nicely and evenly. My only struggle is keeping a calm and steady hand while blending lighter colors in between. They dry fast, but you still have a few seconds to create a smooth transition when mixing 2 shades. I also found that it works best to blend edges with a brush after laying down a layer of marker. Don't try it on clean paper, it just doesn't work as well. These are the small things you only notice after a few tries. When it comes to coloring with acrylic markers, don't expect perfection, especially with these tiny illustrations. Expect a bit of a painterly look, and that's what I love most about it. When I first started working with mixed media, I got a little frustrated because I expected everything to blend perfectly. Smoothness is nice, of course, and I think most people enjoy it, but for me, the fun is in experimenting, discovering different effects, and learning new techniques. So I've kind of let go of the idea that my pages need to look perfectly smooth up close, and I just enjoy the process. But I know switching to a new technique can feel tricky at first, so if you'd rather use acrylic markers just for the small objects here, that's totally fine. You can do the background with watercolors, or if you want something even simpler, watercolor pencils work really well. Just lay down the color and fade it out little by little. This book is really small, which actually makes it perfect for practicing, especially if you're new to brushes. There isn't much background to worry about, and even if a little part behind one picture gets a bit messy, don't stress, and trust me, no one will notice. Just, you can always paint over it with acrylic markers or any other opaque color. Working with acrylic paint in a coloring book can get a little messy, people, and no matter how much experience you have, there's always that little voice in your head saying, don't ruin the book. The book is beautiful on its own, and I still get that weird feeling when I leave pages not perfectly colored. I'm going to add some trees using this technique where I take the paint from the brush tip marker with my brush and paint directly on the paper. This way you can get really nice little details. The trees can be a bit blurry since they're supposed to be in the distance. But if after trying it you're not happy with the detail, no worries, just go over it with the marker and maybe add some stars. Trust me, no one will notice. Here's a part that shows why you really need to be careful with these markers. At the very start of swatching, I released a bit too much paint and it dripped. If that happens to you, just wipe it off with a paper towel. I grabbed a brush and painted over other areas, but the key is to be mindful when releasing the paint and watch how it moves into the brush tip. Once you get that, it actually flows really smoothly. Now let's get to the part where I'm experimenting with markers on the background, and let me say right away, this is exactly why I wouldn't recommend trying it on a bigger area if it's your first time. Markers dry quickly and ideally you don't want the marker lines to show, so You need to thin them out a bit, which takes some practice and figuring out the best way to apply them. In my experience, it's easier to start with a lighter color to cover the whole area first, then gradually layer a darker color once it's dried a little. Having that first layer of markers makes the next layer glide more smoothly. I started with lilac for the background, but it didn't work perfectly. You can see that covering it with another color is actually quite easy. Just be careful not to color when it's still wet paper, or the paper might start to peel, so patience is key. Next up is the snail, and here I want to play with warmer colors, kind of like I did on the mushroom. I'm using an orange to match the mushroom, and I think it will really pop against the blue background. I might also add a touch of turquoise in the front, since the green grass doesn't quite fit here. Turquoise feels like the better choice. This combination actually works surprisingly well, but I still feel like it needs a little more drama, so I'll add some red just to spice things up and also show you more of the colors these markers can offer. I'd like to refine the sky a little now since I feel I smudged it a bit too much. This is also a nice chance to see how the markers and pencils work together. You can see how they really complement each other. It's possible to fix small mistakes and blend the areas more smoothly as long as you find pencils that match the background color well. I'll also add some shadows and highlight a few details, and you'll notice how nicely they work together without needing a lot of extra coloring. The background really gave me a bit of a headache here because I started overcomplicating the colors and ended up overdoing it. That's why it's often easier to work with a smaller palette. It's usually better to stick with just one background color and play with lighter and darker shades of it, rather than constantly mixing new ones. Since we already have so many colors on the houses and mushrooms, a simpler background actually works much better. And the great thing is, you can see how almost any mistake can be fixed with acrylic markers. They've honestly made coloring so much easier for me lately, and I feel more relaxed experimenting because I know I can always cover things up if something doesn't go as planned. Now that I've adjusted the background to a shade of blue, it's a good idea to also keep an eye on the mushrooms. I want to make sure the same colors are nicely placed, rather than repeating them too close to each other. For little details like grass and flowers that you don't want to stand out too much, you can first go over them with a white marker together with the background, and then just add the desired color on top without focusing on too many details. In the upper part, I added some green grass color in one spot, which maybe didn't fit perfectly, but it actually gave me an idea for connecting it with the lower parts. It kind of looked like thicker vines, so I imagined this little magical place as having rows of vines forming small fields, a bit like in video games. So I'll use some pencils to draw very simple intertwined branches and vines, maybe even let a few of them hang down, and we'll see how that turns out. They're really easy to make. Just sketch a slightly winding line with a pencil and shade the edges a bit darker to give it some depth and a rounded look. If it feels tricky to draw over an already painted part, just add a little marker color first, and that's enough. There's no need for details here because we don't want these houses and mushrooms to get lost in the background. Now I'm slowly finishing this second level, and the next part will be in another video where I'll just paint more casually so you can see how I connect all these little details. Now just a final word about these markers. For me, they turned out to be great, though they do require a bit of preparation and experimentation. The colors are really well chosen for a 48-piece set. The tips are precise enough for details, and the opacity is probably the best I've seen in acrylic markers. Layering also works very well. Still, they have their quirks. You need to test them before using them in a coloring book, since the paint release is very specific. You press it yourself, and if you're not careful, you can drip too much. At first, it may seem quite demanding, but you do get used to it. You just need to keep an eye on the ink flow in the brush tip. If you prefer simpler, more predictable markers, you might want to keep this in mind, especially if it's your very first set. But if you already used markers and like experimenting with color, I think you'll enjoy them. They can be a little unpredictable, but that also allows for creative effects. On the practical side, there are a few things I didn't like as much. The markers don't stay neatly in place inside the box, so you can't really sort them by color. And sometimes the little cap that controls the paint flow gets stuck at the bottom. It's not a huge problem, but it can be a bit frustrating. Also, some of the marker caps don't quite match the actual ink, so making a swatch chart is really helpful until you get to know the set better. That said, the more I use them, the more I like them. In fact, this might be one of my favorite Arrtx sets so far when it comes to performance. If you're already familiar with acrylic markers and patient enough to work with their unique flow, I would definitely recommend them. The results are really worth it in the end. I hope I managed to show you how these markers work and that you enjoyed seeing how the little elements come together into a full picture. This was so much fun for me, and I'll start the second part right away so you can hopefully see the finished page soon and maybe get some more ideas if you're working in the same style. Thanks so much for joining me. If you enjoyed the coloring video, a like or comment would mean a lot and help me keep going. I'll see you next time.